Chronometry calibrated. The gateway will open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyzing data. Likelihood of parallel universes now at 30%. Continuing analysis of the many worlds hypothesis.
How many subscribers does it take, Admiral, before it becomes a hit podcast? 1,000? 50,000? 1,000,000? How many people does it take, Admiral? Welcome, everyone. I'm Gayfish. Joining me, as always, is the lovely Moss.
Hello.
And DemonMama.
Hello.
And today we'll be discussing Star Trek Insurrection, the film that breasted boobily where no Bechdel test has before.
So true.
I cannot believe that the only time Beverly and Deanna talk in this movie, it's about their boobs.
That is true.
It passes the Bechdel test. I cannot believe they did that.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Technical. Also, I will say, I love that this movie we do get to see bisexual Riker in this movie for real with his relationship with Data.
I'm listening.
There's this spot where Data, it's after Riker, the shaving scene, the very steamy shaving scene. And then Data comes up and feels his face. Like he caresses his face and then he thinks about it and then he goes, mm-mm. And it's just like, yo, he likes touching your face when it's hairy.
He caressed his face because he said smoother than an android's bottom, Data? And that's why Data checked.
Okay, but come on. The visuals are telling.
I appreciate your queer read of this Star Trek movie, but the textual reference was just a joke where Data's like, no, my butt's smoother.
But there's balance to it. Because she was like, I don't like you with the beard. And so, yeah, I can see where you read it that way.
Yeah, you see what I mean? And also, here's the other thing. How, I know that it's making a reference to the smoother than a baby's bottom, but how would Riker know what an android's bottom is like?
So true.
Well, if you'll remember the season 2 episode of TNG, Measure of a Man, Riker studied detailed schematics on Data's construction in order to construct the prosecution's arguments that he wasn't a person. And in that, he learned about Data's off switch and presumably also the consistency of Data's skin.
And his butt skin specifically. Okay, but also, what could be more gay than studying every inch of someone's body?
It's true. That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true. It's very, 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 very true.
I think any attraction to Data is like fundamentally queer also.
Yeah, of course.
It's autism sexual, sure. I also have to point out that the reason Riker shaved off his beard when Troy's like, I never kissed you with a beard before, that's like an absolute lie. There are 2 episodes where she kisses Riker with a beard. The first is Menage a Troy, where they are having a picnic on Beta Z before they all get kidnapped by Ferengi. And then the other one was in Second Chances. Now, technically, that was a transporter duplicate of Riker, but physiologically, he was the exact same person and had a beard. And she did more than kiss him. So, yeah, that was just wrong.
Well, actually, the reason that she said that is because the Metazoic radiation from the rings of this planet affects Betazoids different than humans. And she mentally regressed to before she had those memories. So,
sure.
No, that's how that works.
All right.
How did we all like this one?
It's fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Like, I don't know. It was a weird movie. I did not hate it, but I didn't love it. The title, Insurrection, was a weird one.
They iterated on that. For a while, it was going to be called Prime Directive. They had a couple other things. I think they just stuck with one that's like, ooh, this sounds like it'll get butts and seats.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I get what they're going for because they are kind of doing a type of insurrection, like, but it's just not what I imagine, like, when I think of an insurrection. It was really funny. Halfway through this episode or this movie, I sat there going, wait a minute, Andor did this. And it's like, I'm like, damn, this is a really similar plot to the Aldhani arc in Andor. But Andor was insurrectionary, whereas this was like, not quite insurrectionary. This was more like a civil war within the the ranks of the Federation, kind of.
The fact that they yada yada'd when Riker actually got in contact with the Federation Council, because like they did that all off screen. They're like, oh yeah, the project's put a halt to it. They really just play it as like Dougherty was really the one that was doing all of this, and everyone else was just unaware of what this project actually entailed.
Unresolved. Yeah, in that way.
There's a lot of stuff that felt like kind of unresolved for me in this movie, and I don't know. It was a weird one. There was stuff that I absolutely loved about this movie. Like, I think that Data in this movie and all of the humor around Data was very like loving and genuinely hilarious. And like, oh my God, the part where he walks into the lake and the little fish swims by and he's like, hello, fishy.
Yeah.
It's so cute. And like, oh my God, all the Data stuff is just like, I don't know. Yeah, it's wild.
I gotta say something about the lake scene.
Okay.
They were up in the mountains when they filmed that.
Yeah.
That lake was 35 degrees. And Brent Spiner was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna let the stunt double do that one." And Frakes, his co-star and director and longtime friend, convinced him, like, "Look, why don't you do it once? We'll get some coverage of it. That way people can see that it's actually you doing it." And guess what? They didn't use any of that footage. All the footage in the film is of the stunt double. So they made Brent Spiner walk into freezing water for nothing.
Damn, that's cold.
Look, that's just the movie business, okay? That's how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you're shivering too much, No, I will say, like, at the very beginning of this movie, I was like, this movie kind of let me realize that, like, Jonathan Frakes definitely has directing chops. Even if I didn't love everything about this movie, I felt like a lot of it was in the like writing and not in the direction. The way that he has actors move and the way that he sets up scenes, and I thought it was a good, like, from what I would consider like a directorial perspective, I thought this movie shined. And it shows that there's a through line between both of the Frakes movies that are like, there's a way that he has a vision for how scenes are blocked and actors are interacting with each other.
He is an actor's director. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really good. And I like that. I thought that was the strongest part of the movie for me. While, some of the other things I thought were not as good, especially than First Contact. First Contact I really liked, but
it's hard not to love First Contact, though.
Yeah. That movie is a very lovable movie.
It's just so good. Yeah.
Honestly, I think this one, of all the TNG movies, and obviously we haven't done Nemesis yet, but this still applies. I think this is the most TNG of any of the TNG movies. I think this is the one that feels, and this is a common sentiment in the Star Trek community. I don't want to come across like this is a novel insight from me, but this one is the one that feels most like it might have been like a memorable 2-part episode of the Next Generation series. And I think it really captures that tone, like the whole opening on the ship where they're just like, they're hosting a diplomatic banquet. They're, talking, oh, we got to do all this diplomacy and put out this brush fire, and all people are coming and going, and they're doing very like, and they've got a string quartet in their dining room and whatnot. Like it felt very much like, yes, this feels like the Next Generation to me. I think it captured the feel of TNG more so than the others did.
Why is there a galley on that ship? He was like, oh, tell the cooks down in the galley, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what do you mean by that? I guess like when they're like, there was a TNG episode from the first season where they had delegates on board who did require like animals to be slaughtered for their food. But I just think it's silly.
It's really, I think, partially is just a holdover from, there was the kitchen scene in Star Trek 6. And also there's probably, there's conversation in Star Trek about the replicator, about like, do we lose something with it? Like O'Brien's mom cooked actual food. Like they didn't just use a replicator, like she actually knew how to cook. There's an episode of DS9 where Keiko is surprised, like, wait, or was it DS9? It doesn't matter. Keiko was surprised when O'Brien was talking. He's like, wait, she cooked actual meat, like with her hands and everything. And some people just think that the replicator, everything is always the same every single time. And maybe it just can't capture certain elements of it. And so it's like, I think they have a galley because for a diplomatic function, do you really want to hand them all microwave dinners?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
cooking is recreation and artistic expression as well. So I can see that. I just was like, har har.
There was an episode of TNG where Riker makes
the eggs.
in heavy quotes omelets. They were scrambled eggs.
Scrambled eggs. Yeah.
Where he makes them for a couple of the crew members. He's just hosting breakfast in his quarters, and they have a talk about replication versus cooking and how there's an artistry to it, and you got to feel it and stuff like that. So,
Also, doesn't Cisco cook a bunch of meals by hand?
Cisco cooks so much. Cisco,
Because he believes very much in it.
his dad runs a restaurant in New Orleans, and he is a cook.
So yeah, there's a few things. I mean, it would make sense to have like the capability to do that. And also, maybe the galley is mostly just like people being able to move that quantity of food from the replicator. So they're more like skilled servers and platers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree with the idea that this is like a very TNG-like episode. There's like, immediately I remembered 2 episodes that really stood out to me as similar is, it was called Inner Light. Yeah,
Yep.
Inner Light, which is a fantastic episode. And one of the first episodes of Star Trek that I was ever like, my dad like sat me down and was like, you have to watch this episode. It's so good. And I was like, I don't quite get it yet, but I think I see the spark. And, it was part of what made me fall in love with Star Trek. But also, the other episode, I don't remember the name of it, but it's the episode where they go onto the planet and they find out that like it's a society they're all holograms, but they've achieved sentience.
Yeah, that was a DS9 episode.
Oh, it was a DS9 one. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because it's like they're like you're the chosen one or whatever. Wait, maybe there was an episode that was also in TNG that's similar, isn't there? Because there's one that I'm thinking of in DS9. There's the one with like the storm monster that's like
that one was created by an orb of the prophets. That was
okay, right.
Yeah, that wasn't a hologram, and those were all real people. But like it was the leader of the village had basically created this monster to unite the village to fight against it.
Yeah, that's right.
That was called the Storyteller.
That's Storyteller, okay.
I'm trying to remember the name of the... Shadowplay was the DS9 episode you're thinking of.
Okay,
with the, and also there was an Enterprise episode that basically just redid the story of Shadowplay. So it's been done several times in Star Trek.
Yeah, those episodes, like, they were in my mind when I was watching this movie.
I also feel like this one doesn't... So there's action in it, but it doesn't feel like an action movie in the way that I think that's kind of one of the crux issues that people feel like that's not really Star Trek, or that's like, the sliding scale of something being more or less true to the original vision.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is its own people fighting against themselves, which we find out at the very end, and that things kind of have to be resolved through a reintegration and diplomacy, kind of bookending from the beginning and the end of the movie, rather than like, yeah, we killed him, we did it. Like, I can see how that it feels more true to the spirit of what Star Trek is trying to communicate.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a couple of action set pieces in this one that are like,
there's quite a bit of action. I would call this an action movie. This was the first time that their space shots were fully CG.
Yeah, it shows. Unfortunately.
It wasn't ILM doing this one. It was Blue Sky, actually. The guys who did Ice Age. And it for the most part holds up, except like I would say the deployment of the Collector, that looked really bad. That looked like Babylon 5 style VFX.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vosh's dad. Don't mean to throw shade on you, but that part didn't hold up as well. But like they were able to do cool things in the space battle with the gases and everything, and they had fun with shooting the drones and having things explode and people fall off cliffs and over bridges and stuff. It was an action movie. They did actiony stuff.
I didn't think the practical effects were too bad. I did not find most of the CG to be amazingly compelling.
It was 98.
Yeah, it's that time where there's just like a lot of enthusiasm around the CG, and maybe it's not quite up to the level of convincingness. Not even,
You weren't convinced by the little hamster?
Oh my God. Okay, some people in the audience inevitably know this. When the hamster caterpillar came out, I was like, why is it the caterpillar from VeggieTales Jonah? And
Oh, boy.
anybody who's watched VeggieTales in the audience is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. He looks just like the caterpillar that's introduced in Jonah. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah, I can
oh
see
my
it.
God.
Yeah, I just Googled it. Yep. Yeah, I see
Yeah,
it.
it's him. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to start singing about belly buttons. It's the silly song with Larry. Anyway, this is some VeggieTales brain rot. But I was just like, oh my God. Now, at first I was like, wow, that looks really terrible. But as the movie went on, I thought about it a little more. And I was like, actually, I'm glad they did like a unique creature because later in the movie, they have the fish, which I like that scene, but it is just a fish. And then also they have this scene where there's like time slows down.
And the hummingbird.
The hummingbird, which I'm like, well, good thing they got hummingbirds on the alien planet. I was just kind of like, maybe they could have done something a little more alien there to like, I don't know, juice it up a little. Because the hummingbird I love hummingbirds. Don't get me wrong.
I understand why they went with the hummingbird. It was to demonstrate the audience knows what a hummingbird is, and they know that they flap their wings very fast.
Yeah.
So when you see a hummingbird with its wings going that slowly, it's a very quick shorthand to say, okay, yeah, time is really slowed down.
Yeah.
So I understand why they did it that way.
Because the waterfall did not quite sell that at first.
No, it sure didn't. How do we feel about the romance, though?
Oh my God, I love Donna Murphy.
Yeah, she's really good, talented.
I wish she was in more things. She was in this. She was Doc Ock's wife in Spider-Man 2. And then, like, if you want to see most of her other work, move to New York and go to Broadway, because that's where she was doing most of her stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
I appreciate that on this planet of perpetual youth, they still got somebody who was like sufficiently milfy to be with Picard.
Yeah.
And I really like her. I think that they had good chemistry. I think she might have been playing, I don't know, a little bit of a stock character, but I think she played it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked overall. I thought that they had good chemistry. It definitely seems like the type that works for Picard. Like she's totally, and they've got each other's number in that way. Although one thing that did like trip me up was like, I was like, wait a minute, wasn't she like with that guy? Like,
I never understood that relationship. I guess they must have been like siblings, like she was the aunt of the kid with the caterpillar hamster.
Yeah, but it really did seem
They never
like,
explained that relationship. Yeah,
just leaving it hanging like that was a little weird because I was like, oh, damn. Like, especially in the first scene when they're walking and she's like giving him the eyes. I was like, oh, no, like, you guys live forever. Like, you're going to really mess up your relationship with your husband. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's not
I guess I just read them as like elders of the village of some kind, like authority figures.
Yeah.
maybe Baku relationships are a lot more fluid and open than ours. I don't know. Maybe that is her husband, but like, hey, listen, I've got like a hall pass for any offlanders that show up, right?
Yeah.
Got to keep the genetic diversity.
For any like sufficiently cultured offlanders who are like got the vision,
I love that she was like, oh, you're so young. Like the idea that Picard, this like older patriarch kind of character that we've seen, and like he does definitely inhabit like toxic masculinity space sometimes with his like lack of emotionality and stuff. So for that to be sort of turned on its head, and so the power dynamic being a little bit flipped on its head was also quite enjoyable.
I do think, though, that since everyone is experiencing signs of youth, they should have had like at least one scene where Picard looks in the mirror and notices peach fuzz coming in on his head and going, ooh, that looks horrible, and shaving it immediately.
His skin did look much more haggard in that first scene. That's something I noticed, like the under his eyes, especially like he looked old in the first scene. And then later in the movie, it does seem like the skin is a little bit tighter. So I wonder if that was something they did deliberately on the makeup.
I'm sure they did. Yeah.
Why is Worf the only one who goes through puberty, though? That just feels like we just played that for laughs.
I think probably because he's the alien. Everybody else, it's kind of hard to make them actually look younger. But since he's going through alien puberty, they can do alien things with it.
That's true. Your hair's so long.
There's only one scene in the movie where I felt like the Worf look did not work. And I can't remember the exact scene, but there's this one scene where you get a side shot of Worf and it's the most visible wig. It's like almost looks like the wig is like coming off his scalp. And I'm like, oh no. But the rest of the movie, I really liked the look that they went for, especially the scene where he gets up and he's in his PJs. I love his little Klingon PJs. They're so good.
I love that they don't bother to explain why he's here. Like, he shows up, they're like, Worf, what are you doing here? And then as he's explaining, they cut away to other dialogue, and then they're just like, oh, well, never mind about that. Why don't you stay on here for this movie?
Yeah, he does. There is a throwaway line, I think, where Picard says, I'm going to ask him to delay his return to DS9, but they never explain, like, why. It's just like, nah, we need your help, bro.
Yeah.
And honestly, to be fair, they probably did need his strength to help take down Data in the beginning.
So, yeah, literally, yeah.
How do we feel about that sequence with the HMS Pinafore?
Oh, with the like docking and the
singing.
I like that scene.
It was really fun.
It's a funny scene. It's great.
I do think it's funny when, like, I mean, there's good writing at the line where it's like, it's a very Star Trek joke of being like, are you familiar with
Gilbert and Sullivan?
Gilbert and Sullivan, thank you. And then he's like, no, I haven't met all the new crew members. Yeah, it's like, it's so good.
And then later the tie back to like, what's the last thing you remember? And he breaks out in song again.
Yeah,
That was good.
yeah. It's so good.
Also, before you move on to the next point, just real quick, there's some setup in that sequence where like they fire a tachyon burst at Data's shield so that he'll reset his shield harmonics and then they beam him over, except he's got a transport inhibitor. Those are all technobabble things that they reuse later in the movie.
Yes, I noticed
They've got
that.
the transport inhibitors on the planet, and that's how they beam the Sona bridge crew to the holo ship, by firing the same tachyon burst and having them reset. So that's a nice little bonus for people who actually pay attention to technobabble.
Yeah.
Continue.
Oh, I was just going to say I have a two-part applause and criticism of Frakes' direction, which and perhaps maybe this is more on the writers. I don't know, but I'll say it's Frakes here because it carries through both movies, which is I think that he does an absolutely amazing job at capturing a focused version of the main cast, like most of the main cast. His interpretation and understanding of Picard, his interpretation and understanding of Worf, his interpretation and understanding of Data, all really good. And it shines through in both of the last two movies we've watched. In this one, I think his understanding of Picard as a person and Picard's morality and his way of approaching problems is really good. And obviously in First Contact, we see him exploring the limits when he is truly pushed to the limit, and we see him break and then have to regain control of himself. But I do think that there's a giant glaring blind spot when it comes to the female characters.
So true.
Yeah.
It sucks.
This is the movie I think that gives Beverly the most to do of any of them. And like Beverly was always the least like developed character on Star Trek. I mean, she was out for like a season of TNG, and they really struggled to figure out things to do with her when they didn't have, a medical issue. And, they were able to do some episodes that explored her relationship with Picard because they're old friends. But the movies really, really neglect her. I mean, she was upset that she had to share a scene with Bob Picardo in the last one. She's like, I get so few scenes in this movie and you're making me share one with the doctor from another show.
Yeah.
But in this one, she's definitely not the focus. Like she is in no way the main character, but like she gets to actually be in the action. She gets to shoot phasers.
Yeah, I thought that was good at least, but it just feels like such a consolation prize.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, and of course, this applies to all of Star Trek. There is a lean towards just focusing on the male characters and their internal struggles. But even in the old ones, like Uhura gets a lot of cool moments and a lot of moments to shine, and where we see her personal character shine through. And I don't know. I guess it's just. It felt like there was a blatant gap in both of these movies. We barely, in the last one, same problem, like Deanna Troi in the series, she has so much going on. Everything from her relationship with her mom, who is also a total presence on the screen, to like just the way that she deals with, like, there's that whole arc with the awkward engineer guy and her dealing with Barclay, his weird obsessions, and like the way that she interacts with Data. And we don't really get to see much of that. We mostly see her as a rekindling of Riker's youthful energy. And I don't know. It was a little sad.
Comparing the difference between the depth of exploration into the male characters, like by contrast, I was just about to say too, like, it feels like Picard is the main character of Jonathan Frakes movies. in a way that like it kind of almost makes it less of an ensemble thing. But it's like, yeah, we dig deep into what they're going through, and then the women are just kind of there. And Deanna maybe one time is like, I kind of feel like maybe it's a good thing, or I kind of feel like maybe they're being deceitful, and then that's kind of it for her.
I do think there's also an aspect of having Patrick Stewart take the lead in these movies that was the fact that Patrick Stewart himself was putting his thumb on the scale. He was like, I know in the show the captain stayed on the bridge while everyone else went on, but I'm the star, so you should have me go off.
That's fair. I'm
off
number
the
one on
ship.
billing.
I should go down to the planet and punch the bad guy,
Yeah.
And which I understand, but also like counterpoint, look what happens when you give Patrick Stewart too much creative control over a project that he's starring in, and that's Star Trek Picard, which is a wonderful show that has absolutely no problems.
Yeah, definitely.
I like too how so speaking to the like storyline of this movie, I did think it kind of amusing that they went with like the gentler option. We're just going to relocate these people. So like the top brass, Dougherty, or like assuming that the council was on board with what he was doing, that they're like, well, it's a peaceful thing. It's not a big deal. We're just going to move them, and then their lives are going to not change meaningfully at all. And so that kind of like skirting around the issue of genocide a little bit was interesting to me.
I'm glad that we're bringing this up now. Actually, several members of the cast even were like kind of questioning whether they agreed with Picard's take. And I think this sums it up best. I've got here a review from Roger Ebert from when this movie came out in 1998, and I gotta read these excerpts from it because it stuck with me for a while and made me side-eye Roger Ebert for the rest of his life. So we begin. As the best minds in the Federation wrestled with the ethical questions involved, I was also asking questions such as, aren't the Baku basically just living in a gated community? Since this Eden-like planet has only 600 inhabitants, why couldn't they use the planet as a spa, circling inside those metaphasic rings and bathing in the radiation, which is probably faster acting in space than down on the surface? After all, we're not talking magic here. Above those practical questions looms a larger philosophical one. Wouldn't it be right to sacrifice the lifestyles of 600 Baku in order to save billions?
Yeah, it's very needs of the many, needs of the few.
Yeah.
Or like there could be a solution to this where everybody benefits. But I do think that the movie maybe doesn't explicitly say it, but it is certainly strongly implied through the themes, through the characters, and how they behave, that pursuing immortality is bad. Like that if it happens to you naturally and you adjust to that lifestyle and you have a degrowth lifestyle as a result of that, that's a good thing. But if you're like, I want to live forever at all costs, that's bad. Point blank, period.
Well, and like the Sona as the villains, who they all have these
Cassandra, moisturize me.
Yeah, like they're people who are, they don't want to give up their consumerist lifestyle, but they still want the immortality that a slower pace of life would grant them, right? They want to have it all, but like they all have Mar-a-Lago face. They've all got they've lived so long trying to extend their lifestyle through other means that just like horrific, grotesque face stretching and everything, and
very Harkonnen.
You're absolutely right. And where it seems like the Baku are able to make use of the immortality that this planet brings because they have a good philosophy about how to use the planet, that they are living there in harmony with it. They aren't like massively industrializing the planet and turning it. They're taking their time with it, living life day by day, taking decades to learn crafts so that they're just actually really good at it and, not just automating everything away for them. There's definitely some idealization of the past in the way that they're set up, but also like it's an entire fucking planet. You wouldn't have to like relocate them. You could literally just set up a colony on the other side of the planet,
Yeah,
never have to
and-
bother them, and you could live there. And there's actually a deleted scene where they find Quark on the planet, and they're like, oh, he's like trying to build a spa and set up like 5,000 timeshare condos on a lakeside or something like that. I'm like, yeah, no, you let's get him back to DS9.
I think that's kind of one of my like parts about this movie that I feel is a little shaky, which is that I don't think it fully nails home what it thinks about the planet, because to me it does seem somewhat apparent that like the problem, the Baku don't seem to be exclusive at all. Like they don't seem to be like, we're not allowing anybody else to live on the planet. And the Sona, like their problem was not that they wanted to leave, because it doesn't seem like anyone's forbidden from leaving. It just seems like they tried to take it over.
Yeah, they were exiled because they tried to take over the village. They
So
they
the problem
wanted
is
to
kinda like-
change their way of life to one
Yeah.
that they suited. It's like, look, I am sure that if, and it does seem like there is some discouragement in the community, like you know, when the dad tells his son, oh, we're not interested in such things, there is a discouragement
To a
of
certain
being
degree.
interested in those things. But like, you know, if somebody wanted to go off, and I'm sure they would let them.
Yeah, and I do think it's like it's kind of drawing a line between like, you shouldn't try to turn this into a product. Like,
Yeah.
if you want the benefits of this, it requires a change in the way that you live. It's not necessarily like, I mean, they do spend time being like, there are benefits to the like chase of like the progress or whatever, but like you can't come to this place and obliterate the population and hope to turn it into a product. That's like morally wrong. I do think that like it's an interesting and thought-provoking message. I don't know that it is able to capture all of the details of it that is necessary. And I do think that like the Roger Ebert, like, and maybe even other responses to the movie, like shows that the movie doesn't quite sell its perspective on it as well as it should. I think that DS9 explores this issue significantly better, but it does so, I will say this, over the course of multiple seasons.
It's a TV show. It can take its time exploring all
Exactly. And
facets.
to be fair, it's a subject that needs that kind of time, in my opinion. It is, and parts of this movie come off as very ham-fisted. Like there's a part where I agree with Picard, but Picard looks like almost directly into the camera and says, any time that a small group of people have been relocated in history, it's turned out very bad. And it's like, yeah, of course. It's kind of like but it's like very ham-fisted and simple. And I do think that it would be like it would benefit. And maybe there's just no way to do this in a movie like this, you know, but it would benefit from, the subject benefits from something like DS9, where you go in and you see all these different incidents. You have these episodes like the one where they're moving the farmer, the one stubborn farmer who like refuses to move his house. Which is like actually a really fascinating subject, because something I learned about in the history of Seattle is the concept of spite mounds. Are you familiar with these at all?
I am not.
Okay, so there was a point so Seattle's a really crazy city in that it was built on extreme hills and a ton of it was dug out. And at a point in Seattle history, there was basically this giant project to like excavate out huge portions of the land and
The Denny regrade.
and regrade everything and then basically terraform the environment. And a handful of people who had full ass houses and lives basically refused to yield their land. And so the government basically decided to dig around them. And so there's these old photographs of what were called spite mounds, which is basically this giant like pillar of dirt and rock on which there is a full house, and then everything else around it has been dug out. And I don't know, it reminded me of that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fascinating like real world historical example that I thought of when thinking about the subject of this movie, is that like these people didn't ask to have their world destroyed, and like it's not like they're saying it's exclusive in any way that we see. It's just like, oh, do you really have the right to just obliterate someone if you want what they have? Or if you want what's near them? And the answer, of course, is no. But
Yeah, especially because the way that the Sonar are doing it, they don't want to live on the planet. They want to take the planet's resources and loot it and leave it bare.
yeah,
And that's the problem. They just lived there.
All that gouge mining.
If they lived on the other side of the planet, they'd be fine.
I guess you do see this like in, at least in American culture a lot, there's this very strange and hypocritical approach to like the greater good, the needs of the many versus the needs of the few, where people don't really approach the concept with a whole lot of depth. I see. And like, you know, some people are just like, it's part of the reason why like eminent domain has been able to be used extremely racistly, I might add, through the history of America. And people are like, well, you know, we needed the highway. Tons of people would benefit from that. And then it's like, well, what happens when it's your house? What happens when it's your entire neighborhood that's going to be plowed over and everything you know is going to be destroyed and you're going to be given a pittance in return, if anything at all? Like, you know, obviously it's a complicated subject, but I don't know. I feel like it's a necessary subject to discuss, and one that, you know, I don't know, people have a surprising amount of willingness to just be like, yeah, sure, you know, 600 people, whatever. It doesn't surprise me that there were people who thought Picard was wrong, but I would urge those types of people to rethink their position.
I think it's the nuance is in like the reason for some of these things, like needs of the few, needs of the many. Like, okay, like Spock willingly dies to save the ship and whoever else. But that doesn't mean, yeah, it's like the reasons for it. Like, okay, we're gouging this out, you know, like we're going to destroy this planet for not literally capitalist reasons, but like functionally capitalist reasons, like for the purpose of commodifying what is on the planet. And so like, yeah. And with this thing in Seattle too, it's like there is, I don't know, it's like the city expanding. Yes, that benefits the community in a certain way, but also there's always fundamentally a capitalist purpose for that, at least in America, right? Like we need more people here so that we can build more industry and do all this. And we're going to destroy the beautiful countryside, the beautiful hilly countryside, and make it all flat so that we can get a road from here to there for the purposes of commerce. And it's like, that does benefit people to some degree. Like we have a society that can support people's needs. It doesn't, but it can support people's needs through that level of centralization and industrialization. But there's tension between the consent of individuals versus like the good of society. And like, I think that we all agree here that libertarians fucking suck. And that the idea that your personal grievances are of utmost importance, regardless of how that impacts other people around you, is a problem. And so, yeah, like I agree. There's a huge amount of nuance in these situations where it may be reasonable to expect or demand people relinquish individual rights and freedoms for the purpose of some kind of greater good. Like none of us have the right to murder people. You know, like we don't have the right to kill people because that would be bad for society. And there's a sliding scale of extremes within that.
Yeah, and I think too, comparing to Wrath of Khan, Spock made the sacrifice, right? He chose that. He chose to be the one who did that. And that's like almost the inverse of what's going on here, where it's like, you don't have a choice. And yeah, I definitely think there are many different versions of this problem that you can imagine, or permutations of this issue. Like if someone has attained by one means or another an enormous amount of wealth that is like killing everyone else, like, do people have a right to say like that should be freed up? And I would argue that there is a case to be made for that. However,
there's an episode of Star Trek Lower Decks that literally addresses that. There's like they're dealing with some like a planetary system that's got several moons, and one of the moons is unstable, and they need to detonate it in order to benefit the other moons. But there's like one inhabitant, or like there's like one family that lives on the moon. They've been arguing the whole time without mentioning that they're the only ones that live on that moon and that they're rich. They just have their own private moon. And once they find out, oh, you guys are just rich assholes who just want your own moon, they blow up the moon immediately.
Yeah, like it's like there is a big difference. And like I do think that the context matters. But like in this example, like these people aren't hoarding wealth in any way.
No.
Like they are just living peacefully here and minding their own business.
They're communists. Like they don't have money.
They don't have it. Yeah, exactly. They're like, we have adapted to this type of life, and you want to turn this into a product for the benefit of your space empire or your space federation. And I think and maybe that's where the insurrectionary nature of this comes in, is just like, it's like these gigantic abstractions that are saying, well, we believe that this will be for the benefit of most people. We can't necessarily demonstrate that that's going to be true, but we believe it will be, so you deserve to be displaced and put into the hands of people who wanted to kill you. Like, yeah.
And while we're talking about choice too, there's another episode of TNG where they're dealing with, an attempt to forcibly relocate a colony. It's called Journey's End, and Picard has been ordered to help a colony evacuate because the Federation and the Cardassians have just made a new treaty and redrawn some borders, and this planet used to be a Federation space, and now it's under Cardassian control. And the problem is that the colony is made up of Native Americans. And Picard's like, you are asking me to forcibly relocate Native. Do you understand the historical, like what the fuck? And the episode ends with them not relocating them because the natives are like, look, we spent generations looking for this home. This is our home. And we'll negotiate with the Cardassians. Like, the Cardassians were originally just going to try and shove them all out, but they negotiated with the Cardassians. They're like, we'll live here, I guess, under your control. And I'm sure that doesn't...
I'm sure that's not bad.
I'm
later.
sure, the Maquis, what are we talking about? Like, that episode kind of sets the seeds for the Maquis and the civilian resistance against Cardassian occupation in the demilitarized zone and all that. That's a fun ongoing story on Star Trek. But the point is that instead of forcibly relocating these people, they let them self-determine, even in the face of, larger hegemonic structures that want to oppress them in certain ways. They're like, well, we're still going to stay here anyway.
Yeah. It's like this idea of saying, well, we can't just assert that we know better than you what you want to do. Which I do think is a common discourse point when discussing governance. Does the assumed power, does the asserting power, a power that says, like, I am the governance here, do they have the right to just say, no, we know what's best for you? And the result of that is like, oh, well, okay, in this particular moment, maybe there isn't that much of a difference between the Federation and the Cardassians with regard to this community. I do like it when Star Trek brings up those moments and grapples with them, because I think it's important.
Geordi's eyes. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it from a disability perspective, because Geordi is upheld as like a great example of how a future world would handle disability, that it's just like, it's plot relevant at times that he can see what other people can't, but he's not less capable or anything because of it. And like, it just seems in general like it's a pretty positive representation. And then like for that to regress back, I don't know how I feel about it.
So I will counter that a little. Like, I definitely understand where you're coming from. What Geordi says to Picard echoes something that he said to Tasha in the second episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. In The Naked Now, where everyone's infected with polywater intoxication. It was a remake of the classic TOS episode where Sulu fences shirtless down the hallway. And this is the episode where Data and Tasha fuck and everyone's just acting crazy. But Geordi is in... Tasha finds Geordi, who's like, I think he's in the conference room. He's taken off his visor and he's crying because he's never been able to see a sunset. He's like, oh, sure, I see more, but more isn't better. I've always wanted to see a sunset with my own eyes, but I can't because I'm
forgot
blind.
that, yeah.
And this is a fulfillment of that dream. And it's not like his eyes don't remain that way once they leave. Like, he's blind again. In the next movie, he's got the implants back.
I was wondering. I was like, okay, we'll
it
see how
didn't cure
this,
him forever. It didn't
It
cure
was
him
just
forever.
a unique opportunity for him. And so I can appreciate it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it could have easily veered into...
I'm fixed now.
Yeah. Versus, but there's even a line where he says, I don't want my ability to see to be the reason that a bunch of people get like displaced. And I feel like that's him saying, like, I know how to live the way that I live, and I'm proud of that, and I don't need to sacrifice. Like, I liked seeing the sunset or sunrise in this case, but I don't need that to come at the price of displacement. And I think that's fairly good. But I think I see what you're saying and where it could have veered really badly if they spent too much time on it.
Yeah, I only watched the movie one time, so I was like, I didn't have time to develop fully, like, how do I feel about all these individual things? But I did find the scene very emotional. Like, do you ever watch those TikToks of a person putting on colorblind glasses for the first time?
Which were all fake, by the way.
Crying, but still. Or like a little kid getting cochlears for the first time or something like that.
Those are impactful.
Okay, yeah. That's the genre here.
Yeah. Yeah, the fixing colorblind thing that was actually like a big scam.
Oh, interesting. That's
Yeah,
fun.
like a lot of those videos were faked. Like I think there was one where one of the Paul brothers
Yeah,
did it,
yeah.
and like he basically faked it. Like you put him on, he's like, I can't tell a fucking difference, but I like this video sponsored by them, so I better act like I'm having a moving,
Yeah,
change.
he talked
Even though
about
it
it
was
on a podcast later, like where he was just like, "Yeah, I just totally acted that out." Like,
yeah.
Wow.
But the cochlear, that's a legit thing. The cochlear implants.
yeah, those are legit. Yeah, but I guess the glasses can work to some degree for certain types of color blindness, but it is a very specific type that most people don't have. I can't remember. I watched a whole video on it, but anyway, yeah.
I have
most
also
of them
seen
are-
babies getting glasses for the first
Yes,
time, and
that's
they're like
another one.
fucking
for
really
sure.
thick glasses, and that child can't see for shit. And it's like, oh, I can see my mom with clarity for the first time, and I'm like,
There's something very cute about a little baby in glasses. That is
so
adorable.
true. They're like strapped to their face.
goggles.
Yeah.
This movie was I didn't enjoy it as much for sure as I did First Contact, but I don't think it was bad by any measure. I definitely would have appreciated some of the more classic space miniatures and stuff like that over the CG.
Sure.
They were able to do some cool things with the ships that they wouldn't have been able to do
definitely.
with miniatures.
And also, like, they did plenty of really cool stuff. Like, you mentioned all the stunt actors getting thrown all around. There's one scene in particular where they go into the hollow ship and the Sona attack, and they shoot at them, and one guy just like tumbles down off of a roof, and I'm just like, damn, like that guy.
He lands
I
on
hope his
something, and you
paycheck
see
was
his
good.
legs come up. Like, yeah.
It's just like dude hits like 3 surfaces on his way down. I'm like, that's a stunt actor. Hell yeah. There's been a couple in this stretch of movies, the like stunt actors taking major hits has been like a recurring theme. Because in Generations, that guy hitting his head on the rock was genuinely horrifying to me, and I'm so curious.
I hope
to know.
he's okay. I
hope
didn't
he's
hear
okay.
anything about it, so I think he was
TBI.
probably fine. I think
Maybe he just got. Maybe they're like, here's a bonus. Like, let's sign a.
Here's $20,000
here's
to not tell anyone about this.
Let's just settle it out. Here's a nice fat check, which, fair.
so. I have a couple last notes.
Okay.
This movie, I think they after First Contact, they must have just kept that whole like kink table where they were keeping Data strapped up, because they had him strapped up in engineering in this movie. It's 2 movies in a row. Data's strapped up in engineering.
Yeah.
And also the manual steering column, the Microsoft Sidewinder that Riker's using to fly the ship. That was an idea from Rick Berman, who was like, "Oh, we got to get the kids involved. Gaming's the big thing now,
It's
right?
like a little
Joysticks."
Atari
And
or
I was like,
something,
"This
yeah.
is 1998. The only people using joysticks were playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. Everyone else was already moved on to WASD. Come on."
That was, as they call it, Unk Gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Oh, yeah. There was one thing I wanted to say, too, that I just remembered, which is, so this movie I have seen before when I was a kid. I didn't remember anything about this movie except when the like stretchy faced guys and the general or the admiral getting put in the face stretcher. That I remember viscerally from my childhood.
This movie was only PG. And they did that.
That was wild. Also, there's a scene where he gets where the Sona leader gets really mad and is like a piece of his head like snaps and blood comes out. So nasty. Such a great little touch. Like, oh, that was so good. That's really sold his fury in that moment. I love that. Like,
they should have got Joan Rivers as an extra. I'm just gonna say, like,
oh, that's so mean.
Wow.
I'm sure she would be in on the jokes. So like considering Joan Rivers style of comedy, I'm sure she would be in on it. She'd be okay with it. Yeah, actually, Dougherty, the Admiral, apparently like the script called for him to be like charming and charismatic, and no, he wasn't.
He was not.
Not even remotely. And I looked at the actor Anthony Zerbe. He had actually tried out for Ruafo, who I think was played with much better gravitas by F. Murray Abraham. Shout out to my homeboy. But my first thought was that maybe he was deliberately playing him as like a coward, because I was like looking up some of his other credits and I saw that he was in the Matrix sequels, and my first thought was, oh, he was the architect. Well, he had much more commanding presence in that movie, and then I realized, no, that was another white bearded guy.
Yeah, different guy.
In the Matrix sequels, he played the Zion counselor who
that's what I thought.
to Neo about. Yeah, so like he's always been this kind of soft spoken guy, so I don't know why he was ever up for Ruafo, but I don't know. I felt like this guy. How the hell did this guy end up getting to the admiralty in the first place? He's got nothing.
No riz.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. One other thing I just remembered that I thought that like made me go, huh, when I watched the movie was there's a part where Picard gives the sidekick Sona. I get their names mixed up. The guy who goes and meets his mom at the end.
I'm appealing
Gallatin.
to your life right
Gallatin.
now. Yeah.
He gives that character like a total like tongue lashing. He's really like, like you're a coward and all this stuff based on the scene that we see before. But I'm like, Picard didn't hear any of that. So he doesn't actually know anything about this guy. And it was just very funny because it's like,
I think
it was a script shuffle. But
the Gallatin had been playing things like you can see it in his performance that
Playing
a
a
lot of
little
the things that he's
reluctant.
doing, he's playing reluctant. And I think Picard could pick up on that. But as long as we're talking about plot holes and things, Riker was off trying to talk to the Federation Council when they found out that the Sona and the Baku are the same race. So how did he know?
oh,
True.
yeah,
When
true.
he came back and it was like, oh, that ship has 1,000 Baku and 1 Klingon, and Riker's like, ram it. Like,
Well, that's the ship. Does the ship just read them all as genetically identical?
they are genetically identical, so the ship read them as Baku.
Yeah, so he wouldn't know.
And Riker's like, oh, there's 100 Baku on that ship. We better attack it.
Oh yeah, true. Okay, yeah, you're right. That's dumb.
There's a couple of things that feel like they were like maybe lost in some script shuffles, which is definitely another like point down between this movie and the movie before it, which I can't help but draw comparisons. But
I also thought that they just ran out of budget for the blue screen stuff on the collector at the end there, but it turns out no, they intended it to all just have blue panels there because they even had like a green screen floor so that they could extend it out with a matte painting. So it looks like they ran out of budget and just left the blue screens up there. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. Before we get to the last TNG movie, Nemesis, since we're I want to maintain the whole even odd thing with Star Trek. So next, to maintain that, we're going to be watching Galaxy Quest.
yes,
That's exciting.
I'm excited.
Which at a convention was ranked one of the best Star Trek movies out there. It beat out actual Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
So
Hell yeah.
yeah, we'll be doing that one.
I'm so excited for Galaxy Quest. And if you're watching along with us, you'll understand why I'm excited and why most of us are excited for Galaxy Quest if you watch the movie.
All right. So thank you all so much for joining us. I've been Gayfesh,
I've been Moth.
And I'm DemonMama.
and we'll catch you next time.
Bye everyone.
Bye.